Utrecht is the fourth largest city and a municipality of the Netherlands, capital and most populous city of the province of Utrecht. It is located in the eastern corner of the Randstad conurbation, in the very center of mainland Netherlands. It had a population of 357,179 as of 2019. Utrecht's ancient city center features many buildings and structures, several dating as far back as the High Middle Ages. It has been the religious center of the Netherlands since the 8th century. It was the most important city in the Netherlands until the Dutch Golden Age, when it was surpassed by Amsterdam as the country's cultural center and most populous city. Utrecht is host to Utrecht University, the largest university in the Netherlands, as well as several other institutions of higher education. Due to its central position within the country, it is an important transport hub for both rail and road transport. It contains the busiest train station in the Netherlands, Utrecht Centraal. It has the second highest number of cultural events in the Netherlands, after Amsterdam. In 2012, Lonely Planet included Utrecht in the top 10 of the world's unsung places. History. Origins. Before 650 AD. Although there is some evidence of earlier inhabitation in the region of Utrecht, dating back to the Stone Age and settling in the Bronze Age, the founding date of the city is usually related to the construction of a Roman fortification, probably built in around 50 CE. A series of such fortresses were built after the Roman Emperor Claudius decided the empire should not expand further north. To consolidate the border, the Limes Germanicus defense line was constructed along the main branch of the River Rhine, which at that time traversed a more northern route compared to today's Rhine flow. These fortresses were designed to house a cohort of about 500 Roman soldiers. Near the fort, settlements grew that housed artisans, traders and soldiers' wives and children. In Roman times, the name of the Utrecht fortress was simply Trajectum, denoting its location at a possible Rhine crossing. Trajectum became Dutch Trecht, with the U from Old Dutch, UUT, added to distinguish Utrecht from Maastricht. In 11th century official documents, it was Latinized as Ultra Trajectum. Around the year 200, the wooden walls of the fortification were replaced by sturdier tough stone walls, remnants of which are still to be found below the buildings around Dom Square. From the middle of the 3rd century, Germanic tribes regularly invaded the Roman territories. After around 275, the Romans could no longer maintain the northern border, and Utrecht was abandoned. Little is known about the period from 270 to 650. Utrecht is first spoken of again several centuries after the Romans left. Under the influence of the growing realms of the Franks, during Dagobert I's reign in the 7th century, a church was built within the walls of the Roman fortress. In ongoing border conflicts with the Frisians, this first church was destroyed. Center of Christianity in the Netherlands, 650-1579. By the mid-7th century, English and Irish missionaries set out to convert the Frisians. Pope Sergius I appointed their leader, Saint Willibrordus, as Bishop of the Frisians. The tenure of Willibrordus is generally considered to be the beginning of the bishopric of Utrecht. In 723, the Frankish leader Charles Martel bestowed the fortress in Utrecht and the surrounding lands as the base of the bishops. From then on, Utrecht became one of the most influential seats of power for the Roman Catholic Church in the Netherlands. The archbishops of Utrecht were based at the uneasy northern border of the Carolingian Empire. In addition, the city of Utrecht had competition from the nearby trading center Dorestad. After the fall of Dorestad around 850, Utrecht became one of the most important cities in the Netherlands. The importance of Utrecht as a center of Christianity is illustrated by the election of the Utrecht-born Adrian Florenzoen Boïens as Pope in 1522. Prince-bishops. When the Frankish rulers established the system of feudalism, the bishops of Utrecht came to exercise worldly power as prince-bishops. The territory of the bishopric not only included the modern province of Utrecht, but also extended to the northeast. The feudal conflict of the Middle Ages heavily affected Utrecht. The prince-bishopric was involved in almost continuous conflicts with the Counts of Holland and the Dukes of Gelders. The Veluwe region was seized by Gelders, but large areas in the modern province of Overijssel remained as the Oversticht. Religious buildings. Several churches and monasteries were built inside, or close to, the city of Utrecht. The most dominant of these was the Cathedral of St. Martin, inside the old Roman fortress. The construction of the present Gothic building was begun in 1254 after an earlier Romanesque construction had been badly damaged by fire. The choir and transept were finished from 1320 and were followed then by the ambitious dome tower. The last part to be constructed was the central nave, from 1420. By that time, however, the age of the great cathedrals had come to an end and declining finances prevented the ambitious project from being finished, the construction of the central nave being suspended before the planned flying buttresses could be finished. Besides the cathedral there were 4 collegiate churches in Utrecht. St. Salvator's Church, on the Dom Square, dating back to the early 8th century. St. John, originating in 1040. St. Peter, building started in 1039 and St. Mary's Church building started around 1090. Besides these churches, the city housed St. Paul's Abbey, the 15th century baganage of St. Nicholas, and a 14th century chapter house of the Teutonic Knights. Besides these buildings which belonged to the bishopric, an additional 4 parish churches were constructed in the city. The Jacobikirk, founded in the 11th century, with the current Gothic church dating back to the 14th century. The Burkirk of the 11th century parish in the center of the city. Nicolai Church, from the 12th century and the 13th century Geertekirk. City of Utrecht. Its location on the banks of the River Rhine allowed Utrecht to become an important trade center in the northern Netherlands. The growing town was granted city rights by Henry V in 1122. When the main flow of the Rhine moved south, the old bed which still flowed through the heart of the town became ever more canalized, and the wharf system was built as an inner-city harbor system. On the wharfs, storage facilities were built, on top of which the main street, including houses, was constructed. The wharfs and the cellars are accessible from a platform at water level with stairs descending from the street level to form a unique structure. The relations between the bishop, who controlled many lands outside of the city, and the citizens of Utrecht was not always easy. The bishop, for example, dammed the Krom Rijn at Wijk bij Duurstede to protect his estates from flooding. This threatened shipping for the city and led the city of Utrecht to commission a canal to ensure access to the town for shipping trade. The Vaartzee Rijn, connecting Utrecht to the Hollandse IJssel at IJsselstein. The end of independence. In 1528 the bishop lost secular power over both Netter and Oversticht, which included the city of Utrecht, to Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. Charles V combined the 17 provinces as a personal union. This ended the Prince-Bishopric of Utrecht, as the secular rule was now the Lordship of Utrecht, with the religious power remaining with the bishop, although Charles V had gained the right to appoint new bishops. In 1559 the Bishopric of Utrecht was raised to Archbishopric to make it the religious center of the northern ecclesiastical province in the 17 provinces. The transition from independence to a relatively minor part of a larger union was not easily accepted. To quell uprisings, Charles V struggled to exert his power over the city's citizens who had struggled to gain a certain level of independence from the bishops and were not willing to cede this to their new lord. The heavily fortified Castle Vredenburg was built to house a large garrison whose main task was to maintain control over the city. The castle would last less than 50 years before it was demolished in an uprising in the early stages of the Dutch Revolt. Republic of the Netherlands, 1579–1806. In 1579 the northern 7 provinces signed the Union of Utrecht, in which they decided to join forces against Spanish rule. The Union of Utrecht is seen as the beginning of the Dutch Republic. In 1580, the new and predominantly Protestant state abolished the bishoprics, including the Archbishopric of Utrecht. The stadtholders disapproved of the independent course of the Utrecht bourgeoisie and brought the city under much more direct control of the Republic, shifting the power towards its dominant province Holland. This was the start of a long period of stagnation of trade and development in Utrecht. Utrecht remained an atypical city in the new republic, being about 40% Catholic in the mid-17th century, and even more so among the elite groups, who included many rural nobility and gentry with townhouses there. The fortified city temporarily fell to the French invasion in 1672, where the French invasion was stopped just west of Utrecht at the old Hollandic waterline. In 1674, only 2 years after the French left, the center of Utrecht was struck by a tornado. The halt to building before construction of flying buttresses in the 15th century now proved to be the undoing of the Cathedral of St. Martin Church's central section, which collapsed, creating the current Dom Square between the tower and choir. In 1713, Utrecht hosted one of the first international peace negotiations when the Treaty of Utrecht settled the War of the Spanish Succession. Beginning in 1723, Utrecht became the center of the non-Roman Old Catholic churches in the world. Modern history, 1815-present. In the early 19th century, the role of Utrecht as a fortified town had become obsolete. The fortifications of the New Hollandse Waterlinie were moved east of Utrecht. The town walls could now be demolished to allow for expansion. The moats remained intact and formed an important feature of the Zakkerplantsoen, an English-style landscape park that remains largely intact today. Growth of the city increased when, in 1843, a railway connecting Utrecht to Amsterdam was opened. After that, Utrecht gradually became the main hub of the Dutch railway network. With the Industrial Revolution finally gathering speed in the Netherlands and the ramparts taken down, Utrecht began to grow far beyond its medieval center. When the Dutch government allowed the bishopric of Utrecht to be reinstated by Rome in 1853, Utrecht became the center of Dutch Catholicism once more. From the 1880s onward, neighborhoods such as Oudwijk, Wittevrouwen, Vogelenburg to the east, and Lombok to the west were developed. New middle-class residential areas, such as Tuindorp and Oog en Uyl, were built in the 1920s and 1930s. During this period, several Jugendstil houses and office buildings were built, followed by Rietveld, who built the Rietveld Schroeder House, and Dudok's construction of the city theater. During World War II, Utrecht was held by the Germans until the general German surrender of the Netherlands on 5 May 1945. British and Canadian troops that had surrounded the city entered it after that surrender, on 7 May 1945. Following the end of World War II, the city grew considerably when new neighborhoods such as Overvecht, Connelanyland, Hooggraven and Lunetten were built. Around 2000, the Leidse Rijn housing area was developed as an extension of the city to the west. The area surrounding Utrecht Centraal Railway Station and the station itself were developed following modernist ideas of the 1960s, in a brutalist style. This development led to the construction of the shopping mall Hoog Catharina, the music center Vredenburg, and conversion of part of the ancient canal structure into a highway. Protest against further modernization of the city center followed even before the last buildings were finalized. In the early 21st century, the whole area is undergoing change again. The redeveloped music center Tivoli Vredenburg opened in 2014 with the original Vredenburg and Tivoli concert and rock and jazz halls brought together in a single building. Geography. Climate. Utrecht experiences a temperate oceanic climate similar to all of the Netherlands. Population. Demographics. Utrecht City had a population of 296,305 in 2007. It is a growing municipality and projections are that the population will surpass 392,000 by 2025. As of November 2019, the city of Utrecht has a population of 357,179. Utrecht has a young population, with many inhabitants in the age category from 20 and 30 years, due to the presence of a large university. About 52% of the population is female, 48% is male. The majority of households in Utrecht are single-person households. About 29% of people living in Utrecht are either married, or have another legal partnership. About 3% of the population of Utrecht is divorced. For 69% of the population of Utrecht, both parents were born in the Netherlands. Approximately 10% of the population consists of people with a recent migration background from Western countries, while 21% of the population has at least one parent who is of non-Western origin. Some of the city's boroughs have a relatively high percentage of originally people with a migration background, i.e. Connelanyland and Overvecht. Like Rotterdam, Amsterdam, The Hague and other large Dutch cities, Utrecht faces some socio-economic problems. About 38% of its population either earns a minimum income or is dependent on social welfare. Boroughs such as Connelanyland, Overvecht and Hooggraven consist primarily of high-rise housing developments, and are known for relatively high poverty and crime rate. Religion. Utrecht has been the religious center of the Netherlands since the 8th century. Currently it is the see of the Metropolitan Archbishop of Utrecht, the most senior Dutch Roman Catholic leader. His ecclesiastical province covers the whole kingdom. Utrecht is also the see of the Archbishop of the Old Catholic Church, titular head of the Union of Utrecht, and the location of the offices of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands, the main Dutch Protestant Church. As of 2013, the largest religion is Christianity with 28% of the population being Christian, followed by Islam with 9.5% and Hinduism with 0.8%. Population centers and agglomeration. The city of Utrecht is subdivided into 10 city quarters, all of which have their own neighborhood council and service center for civil affairs. Binnenstad, Oost, Leidschie Rijn, West, Overvecht, Zuid, Noordoost, Zuidwest, Nordwest, Vleuten de Meern. Utrecht is the center of a densely populated area, a fact which makes concise definitions of its agglomeration difficult and somewhat arbitrary. The smaller Utrecht agglomeration of continuously built-up areas counts some 420,000 inhabitants and includes Nieuwegein, IJsselstein and Maarssen. It is sometimes argued that the close-by municipalities De Bilt, Zeist, Houten, Vianen, Driebergen-Riesenberg, and Bunnik should also be counted towards the Utrecht agglomeration, bringing the total to 640,000 inhabitants. The larger region, including slightly more remote towns such as Woerden and Amersfoort, counts up to 820,000 inhabitants. Cityscape. Utrecht's cityscape is dominated by the Dom Tower, the tallest belfry in the Netherlands and originally part of the Cathedral of St. Martin. An ongoing debate is over whether any building in or near the center of town should surpass the Dom Tower in height. Nevertheless, some tall buildings are now being constructed that will become part of the skyline of Utrecht. The second tallest building of the city, the Rabobank Tower, was completed in 2010 and stands 105 meters tall. 2 antennas will increase that height to 120 meters. 2 other buildings were constructed around the new Galgenwaard Stadium. These buildings, the Kantoren Galgenwaard and Apollo Residence, stand 85.5 meters and 64.5 meters high respectively. Another landmark is the Old Center and the canal structure in the inner city. The Oudegracht is a curved canal, partly following the ancient main branch of the Rhine. It is lined with the unique wharf basement structures that create a 2-level street along the canals. The inner city has largely retained its medieval structure, and the moat ringing the old town is largely intact. In the 1970s, part of the moat was converted into a motorway. It was then converted back into a waterway, the work being finished in 2020. Because of the role of Utrecht as a fortified city, construction outside the medieval center and its city walls was restricted until the 19th century. Surrounding the medieval core there is a ring of late 19th and early 20th century neighborhoods, with newer neighborhoods positioned farther out. The eastern part of Utrecht remains fairly open. The Dutch waterline, moved east of the city in the early 19th century, required open lines of fire, thus prohibiting all permanent constructions until the middle of the 20th century on the east side of the city. Due to the past importance of Utrecht as a religious center, several monumental churches were erected, many of which have survived. Most prominent is the Dom Church. Other notable churches include the Romanesque St. Peter's and St. John's churches, the Gothic churches of St. James and St. Nicholas, and the Burgkerk, now converted into a museum for automatically playing musical instruments. Transport. Public transport. Because of its central location, Utrecht is well connected to the rest of the Netherlands and has a well-developed public transport network. Heavy rail. Utrecht Centraal is the main railway station of Utrecht and is the largest in the country. There are regular intercity services to all major Dutch cities, direct services to Schiphol Airport. Utrecht Centraal is a station on the night service, providing 7 days a week an all-night service to Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam and Rotterdam. International intercity express services to Germany through Arnhem call at Utrecht Centraal. Regular local trains to all areas surrounding Utrecht also depart from Utrecht Centraal, and service several smaller stations, Utrecht Lunetten, Utrecht Vaart Rijn, Utrecht Overvecht, Utrecht Leidschie Rijn, Utrecht Terwede, Utrecht Zulen and Vleuten. A former station Utrecht Malibaan closed in 1939 and has since been converted into the Dutch Railway Museum. Utrecht is the location of the headquarters of Nederlandse Spoorwegen, the largest rail operator in the Netherlands, and ProRail, the state-owned company responsible for the construction and maintenance of the country's rail infrastructure. Light rail. The Utrecht Sneltram is a light rail scheme running southwards from Utrecht Centraal to the suburbs of IJsselstein, Connelanyland, Lombok and Nieuwegein. The Sneltram began operations in 1983 and is currently operated by the private transport company Qbuzz. On the 16th of December 2019 the new tramline to the Weidhof started operating, creating a direct mass transit connection from the central station to the main Utrecht University campus. Bus transport. The main local and regional bus station of Utrecht is located adjacent to Utrecht Centraal Railway Station, at the east and west entrances. Due to large-scale renovation and construction works at the railway station, the station's bus stops are changing frequently. As a general rule, westbound buses depart from the bus station on the west entrance, other buses from the east side station. Local buses in Utrecht are operated by Qbuzz. Its services include a high-frequency service to the Wiethof University District. The local bus fleet is one of Europe's cleanest, using only buses compliant with the Euro V standard as well as electric buses for inner-city transport. Regional buses from the city are operated by Arriva and Connexion. The Utrecht Centraal Railway Station is also served by the pan-European services of Eurolines. Furthermore, it acts as departure and arrival place of many coach companies serving holiday resorts in Spain and France, and during winter in Austria and Switzerland. Cycling. Like most Dutch cities, Utrecht has an extensive network of cycle paths, making cycling safe and popular. 33% of journeys within the city are by bicycle, more than any other mode of transport. Bicycles are used by young and old people, and by individuals and families. They are mostly traditional, upright, steel-framed bicycles, with few gears. There are also barrow bikes, for carrying shopping or small children. In 2014, the City Council decided to build the world's largest bicycle parking station, near the Central Railway Station. This 3-floor construction will cost an estimated €48 million and will hold 12,500 bicycles. The bicycle parking station was finally opened on the 19th of August 2019. Road transport. Utrecht is well connected to the Dutch road network. Two of the most important major roads serve the city of Utrecht. The A12 and A2 motorways connect Amsterdam, Arnhem, The Hague and Maastricht, as well as Belgium and Germany. Other major motorways in the area are the Almere-Breda A27 and the Utrecht-Groningen A28. Due to the increasing traffic and the ancient city plan, traffic congestion is a common phenomenon in and around Utrecht, causing elevated levels of air pollutants. This has led to a passionate debate in the city about the best way to improve the city's air quality. Shipping. Utrecht has an industrial port located on the Amsterdam Rhine Canal. The container terminal has a capacity of 80,000 containers a year. In 2003, the port facilitated the transport of 4 million tons of cargo, mostly sand, gravel, fertilizer and fodder. Additionally, some tourist boat trips are organized from various places on the Oudegracht, and the city is connected to touristic shipping routes through sluices. Economy. Production industry constitutes a small part of the economy of Utrecht. The economy of Utrecht depends for a large part on the several large institutions located in the city. It is the center of the Dutch railroad network and the location of the head office of Nederlandse Spoorwegen. ProRail is headquartered in De Inktpot, the largest brick building in the Netherlands. Rabobank, a large bank, has its headquarters in Utrecht. Education. Utrecht hosts several large institutions of higher education. The most prominent of these is Utrecht University, the largest university of the Netherlands with 30,449 students. The university is partially based in the inner city as well as in the Wiethof campus area, to the east of the city. According to Shanghai Jiaotong University's university ranking in 2014, it is the 57th best university in the world. Utrecht also houses the much smaller University of Humanistic Studies, which houses about 400 students. Utrecht is home of one of the locations of TIA's School for Business and Society, focused on post-experience management education and the largest management school of its kind in the Netherlands. In 2008, its executive MBA program was rated the 24th best program in the world by the Financial Times. Utrecht is also home to two other large institutions of higher education. The Vocational University Hogeschool Utrecht, with locations in the city and the Wiethof campus, and the HKU Utrecht School of the Arts. There are many schools for primary and secondary education, allowing parents to select from different philosophies and religions in the school as is inherent in the Dutch school system. Culture. Utrecht City has an active cultural life, and in the Netherlands is second only to Amsterdam. There are several theaters and theater companies. The 1941 Main City Theater was built by Dudok. In addition to theaters, there is a large number of cinemas including 3 art house cinemas. Utrecht is host to the International Early Music Festival and the Netherlands Film Festival. The city has an important classical music hall, Vredenburg. Its acoustics are considered among the best of the 20th century original music halls. The original Vredenburg Music Hall has been redeveloped as part of the larger station area redevelopment plan, and in 2014 gained additional halls that allowed its merger with the Rock Club Tivoli and the SJU Jazz Podium. There are several other venues for music throughout the city. Young musicians are educated in the Conservatory, a department of the Utrecht School of the Arts. There is a specialized museum of automatically playing musical instruments. There are many art galleries in Utrecht. There are also several foundations to support art and artists. Training of artists is done at the Utrecht School of the Arts. The Centraal Museum has many exhibitions on the arts, including a permanent exhibition on the works of Utrecht resident illustrator Dick Bruna, who is best known for creating Miffy. BAK, Basis voor Actual Kunst, offers contemporary art exhibitions and public events, as well as a fellowship program for practitioners involved in contemporary arts, theory and activisms. Although street art is illegal in Utrecht, the Utrecht Sea Kabouter, a picture of a gnome with a red hat, became a common sight in 2004. Utrecht also houses one of the landmarks of modern architecture, the 1924 Rietveld Schroeder House, which is listed on UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. Every Saturday, a pavior adds another letter to the letters of Utrecht, an endless poem in the cobblestones of the Uitgracht in Utrecht. With the letters, Utrecht has a social sculpture as a growing monument created for the benefit of future people. To promote culture, Utrecht City organizes cultural Sundays. During a thematic Sunday, several organizations create a program which is open to everyone without, or with a very much reduced, admission fee. There are also initiatives for amateur artists. The city subsidizes an organization for amateur education in arts aimed at all inhabitants, as does the university for its staff and students. Additionally, there are also several private initiatives. The City Council provides coupons for discounts to inhabitants who receive welfare to be used with many of the initiatives. In 2017, Utrecht was named as a UNESCO City of Literature. Sports. Utrecht is home to the Premier League football club FC Utrecht, which plays in Stadium Nieuw Galgenwaard. It is also the home of Kampong, the largest sports club in the Netherlands, SV Kampong. Kampong features field hockey, association football, cricket, tennis, squash and boulet. Kampong's men and women top hockey squads play in the highest Dutch hockey league, the Rabo Hoofdklasse. Utrecht is also home to baseball and softball club UVV, which plays in the highest Dutch baseball league, de Hoofdklasse. Utrecht's waterways are used by several rowing clubs. Viking is a large club open to the general public, and the student clubs Orca and Triton compete in the varsity each year. In July 2013, Utrecht hosted the European Youth Olympic Festival, in which more than 2,000 young athletes competed in 9 different Olympic sports. In July 2015, Utrecht hosted the Grand Départ and first stage of the Tour de France. Museums. Utrecht has several smaller and larger museums. Many of those are located in the southern part of the Old Town, the Museumwartier. Aboriginal Art Museum, located at the Uitgracht and closed since the 15th of June 2017. This museum had a small exhibit of Australian Aboriginal art. BAK, Basis voor Actual Kunst, an international platform for theoretically informed, politically driven art and experimental research. Centraal Museum, located in the Museum Quarter, this municipal museum has a large collection of art, design, and historical artifacts. Dick Bruna Huis, art of Centraal Museum on this separate location is dedicated to Miffy creator Dick Bruna. Dutsi Huis has a collection of historical items including many charters with seals dating from as far back as the early 13th century and a collection of medieval coins. Museum Katharineconvent, Museum of the Catholic Church, shows the history of Christian culture and arts in the Netherlands. Museum Speelklok National Museum in the center of the city, displays several centuries of mechanical musical instruments. Railway Museum, railway-sponsored museum on the history of the Dutch railways. Utrecht Archives, are located at Hamburgerstraat 28 in Utrecht. Utrecht University Museum. Utrecht University Museum includes the ancient botanical garden. Volksbert Museum Wijk C. Sonnenborg Observatory and museum that regularly hosts lectures on astronomy, located at Zonnenberg 2 in Utrecht. Betje Borhave Museum for the grocer's shop where you can still buy old-fashioned food and non-food items, located at Hoot 6 in Utrecht. Music and events. The city has several music venues such as Tivoli Vredenburg, Tivoli de Helling, ACU, Moira, Echo, DB's and Rasa. Utrecht hosts the yearly Utrecht Early Music Festival. In Jaarbeurs it hosts Trance Energy. Every summer there used to be the Summer Darkness Festival, which celebrated goth culture and music. In November the Le Guess Who Festival, focused on indie rock, art rock and experimental rock, takes place in many of the city's venues. Theater. There are two main theaters in the city, the Theater Kikker and the Staatsgeuwerberg Utrecht de Parade, a traveling theater festival, performs in Utrecht in summer. The city also hosts the yearly festival A.D. Werf, which offers a selection of contemporary international theater, together with visual arts, public art and music. Notable people from Utrecht. See also the category People from Utrecht. Over the ages famous people have been born and/or raised in Utrecht. Among the most famous Utrechters are Pope Adrian VI, head of the Catholic Church; Louis Andriessen, composer; Marco van Basten, football player; Dick Bruna, writer, illustrator; C.H.D. Bijsballet, meteorologist; Theo van Doesburg, painter, artist; Karel Doorman, rear admiral; Paul Fentener van Vlissingen, businessman and philanthropist; Anton Geesink, judoka, first non-Japanese world champion judo; Rake de Goyer, actor, writer, comedian and singer; Sylvia Kristel, actress; Gerrit Rietveld, designer, architect; Daphne Schippers, sprinter, heptathlon Olympian; Herman van Veen, actor, musician, singer-songwriter and author Alfred J. Kwak; Will Velders Vlasblom, first female alderman in Utrecht. International relations. Twin towns. Utrecht is twinned with León, Nicaragua; Brno, Czech Republic; Pekanbaru, Indonesia; previously Hanover, Germany, between 1970 and 1976. Other relations. Portland, Oregon, United States as a friendship city.